Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I just want to make a short contribution today about the effect of the EU on the economic viability of our fishing industry. And I'd like to congratulate all of those fishermen who've taken part in the flotilla up the Thames today to make sure that we hear where they stand. Our fishing industry is a ghost of its former self, and to be quite honest, before we joined the EU, we had a very successful, viable fishing industry all around the coast. But I remember in South East Cornwall seeing fishing boats moored 3 or 4 deep from the quayside. I don't see that today. Whilst fishing is no longer the largest employer in lieu, tourism is. People come to traditional fishing towns and expect to see fish landed. A highlight they often mention is tasting fish and chips from one of the award-winning restaurants, or buying fresh catch from the fishmongers like Pengelly's in lieu. I ask, where would tourism be without fishing? In 1971, just before we joined the EU, we had a thriving industry, bringing home millions of tonnes of fish and directly employing over 21,000 people. Last year, we caught around 600,000 tonnes with under 12,000 fishermen. According to a report coordinated by the New Economics Foundation, this fall amounted to about 12% between 2003 and 2013 in the number of fishermen. My late husband Neil was one of those fishermen, forced to fish alone on his boat as a result of the economic pressures due to the reducing quotas, and still trying to meet the costs of increasing insurance, harbour dues, landing charges, not to mention repair costs and gear replacement. The report attributes the major factors causing employment to decrease to a declining number of fishing vessels due to the forced scrapping imposed by successive governments to meet artificial targets imposed by the European Commission, and vessels investing in new technology. The latter point may be true for larger vessels who operate with several deckhands, but it's certainly not the case for small fishermen like Neil. It was a simple economic decision taken because he could not sell and land the fish that swam into his net. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the report also says that the trend of declining fishing vessels and fishermen is likely to continue within the fishing industry going forward. What the report doesn't mention is the declining fish quotas that the EU sets each year. Haddock is just one example, with the UK getting 10% of the total allowable catch, whilst France gets 70%. The same applies to many other species in many other areas. I ask the House, would you go into a bank alongside a French person, each with a bundle of notes to the value of £70? The French person invests those notes, while you throw £60 into a waste paper bin and invest a £10 note, because that's effectively what the fishermen in lieu are being forced to do today because of the quota share agreed by the EU in 1983, known as relative stability. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend, and all of us in this House know very well the story, the sad story of the honourable lady's husband. Could I ask the honourable lady, how much more increase in capacity would the fishermen of Looe get if we were to leave the European Union?
My friend makes a good point, and I will come on to that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm not going to get into arguments with those who want to remain and further sacrifice this great industry and abandon the economic well-being of our coastal fishing towns, which would disproportionately be affected. Whilst I cannot say that Neil died as a result of the CFP, I can say it contributed to the economic pressure he felt when deciding to fish alone. At the time we talked about it and decided to better work less rough water alone than to have to work in storms to provide for 2 families. What I say today is throw the fishermen a lifeline. Our Fisheries Minister has been to Brussels and has seen for himself how little he can deliver with the horse trading in the Council of Ministers about a proposal put forward by the unelected European Commission. if we vote leave, in response to my honourable friend, if we vote leave, our fisheries minister would be able to make the decisions that apply to fishermen in all of the UK's 200-mile to median line limit. If we, as someone who has breathed and lived the UK fishing industry for around 30 years, I say there are no economic benefits to the UK fishermen from membership of the European Union. Around 92% of fishermen are calling for the UK to leave. I say, let's throw them a lifeline and vote leave and take control of our 200-mile limit, 80% of the total European Union pond. We could take control of that. We wouldn't necessarily have to say to other member states, you can't come and fish in our waters, but it would be our terms and not 28 horse trading around the EU table on a proposal from an unelected, appointed, bureaucratic European Commission in Brussels. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker.